The grand chamber of the Galactic Council gleamed with lights from 1,000 worlds. Park Min-ho stood at the presentation platform, his dark suit simple compared to the elaborate forms of the alien delegates around him. He was Earth's cultural ambassador, and today he would share human history with the galaxy. Our species has many stories about great fleets, Min-ho began, displaying images of ancient ships crossing Earth's oceans. We remember the navies that sailed our seas. We honor the warriors who defended our peoples. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not cruel laughter, but the amused chuckling of adults listening to children's tales. Council Chair Veloth, a being of living crystal, spoke with gentle condescension. Ambassador Park, these stories are charming. Your species clearly has vivid imagination. A Voratine delegate, insectoid and precise, clicked his mandibles. It is natural. Humans lack natural weapons, no claws or armor, so they create myths of mighty warriors to feel strong. Min-ho kept his expression neutral. Beside him, his assistant, Kim Soo-jin, tensed. She was younger, less patient. Her hands gripped the edge of her datapad. With respect, Min-ho said calmly, these are not myths. They are history. My own ancestor served in the naval forces. We maintain these records because your violent past haunts you, interrupted Shelkari diplomat Vren, her aquatic form shimmering in its containment suit. We understand, Ambassador. Young species often romanticize conflict. You will outgrow this as you mature. More polite laughter. Min-ho noticed how the delegates smiled at each other, sharing the joke. Humanity, the newcomers, still clinging to primitive ideas of warfare. We prefer peace, Min-ho said quietly. But we remember war. There is a difference. Veloth waved a crystalline appendage. Of course, of course. Now shall we move to more pleasant topics? Tell us about your artistic traditions. The presentation shifted. Min-ho spoke of human art and music, and the council listened with greater interest. They appreciated culture. They just did not understand why humans still studied military strategy, still maintained academies that taught ancient battle tactics, still honored their warriors. After the session, Kim Soo-jin followed Min-ho to their quarters. They treat us like children, she said, frustration clear in her voice. They mean no insult, Min-ho replied, though his jaw was tight. They have lived in peace for so long. They have forgotten what came before. Is that wise? Min-ho looked out at the stars beyond the station. We will see. That night, reports came in. The Dekari, a militant species from beyond the council's borders, had raided 3 outer colonies. The attacks were brutal and efficient. The council met in emergency session. Min-ho and Soo-jin attended as observers. This is unacceptable, declared Veloth. We must send stern diplomatic protests. Economic sanctions, suggested the Voratin delegate. Cut their trade access. Perhaps they are simply misunderstood, offered Vren. We should open dialogue, understand their grievances. Min-ho listened as the council debated for hours. They discussed cultural exchange programs. They proposed neutral mediators. They drafted strongly worded letters. Not once did anyone mention defense. Not once did anyone suggest military response. Finally, young Soo-jin could not contain herself. What if they attack again? She asked. The chamber fell silent. The delegates looked at her with confusion. Why would they? Asked Veloth. Once they understand we are willing to negotiate. But what if they are not interested in negotiation? Soo-jin pressed. What if they simply want your resources? The Voratin clicked in what might have been amusement. My dear, we are civilized beings. Conflict is resolved through discussion, not violence. That is what separates advanced species from primitives. Min-ho placed a gentle hand on Soo-jin's shoulder, quieting her. But his mind raced. He had studied the reports. The Dekari attacks showed coordination, strategy, purpose. These were not random raids. This was military action, and the Council had no concept of military response. Over the next weeks, the attacks increased. More colonies hit, more civilians killed. The Council sent delegations to negotiate. The Dekari killed the delegations. "This is impossible," Vren said during another emergency session. "Civilized beings do not behave this way." "Then perhaps they are not civilized by your definition," Minho said quietly. "What do you suggest, Ambassador?" Veloth asked, a hint of desperation in his crystalline voice. Minho chose his words carefully. "On Earth we have a saying, 'Hope for peace, but prepare for war.' You have hoped, but you did not prepare." "We have defense forces," protested the Voritan. "Police forces," Minho corrected, "designed to maintain order among peaceful citizens, not to fight an organized military." "And you think you know better?" The Voritan's tone carried an edge now. "I think," Minho said, "that humanity has painful experience with conquerors. We learned lessons the galaxy has forgotten." That night, encrypted communications flowed between the Council station and Earth. Minho sat in his quarters, composing a message that required authorization from the highest levels. "They do not understand," he wrote. "They have no warriors, no strategic doctrine, no concept of combined arms warfare. The Dekari will not stop. The Council cannot stop them." He paused, fingers hovering over the keys. Then he typed the words that would change everything. "Request activation of Reserve Fleet Protocol. The galaxy needs us, whether they know it or not." He sent the message and waited. Somewhere far away, people who had hoped never to serve again would receive a call. Ships that were meant to rust in peace would wake, and the galaxy would learn that human myths were something far more dangerous. They were instruction manuals. 3 months passed, and the galaxy burned. The Dekari had moved from raiding to invasion. 4 Council worlds now flew enemy flags. The death toll climbed into millions. Refugee ships crowded every safe port, telling stories of systematic conquest. The Council Defense Force, designed for peacekeeping, collapsed within weeks. Their ships were meant to stop smugglers and pirates, not coordinated battle fleets. When they faced real military force, they broke and ran. In the Grand Chamber, panic replaced politeness. "We must negotiate," Vren insisted, her voice shaking. "Offer them resources, territory, anything." "We tried," Veloth said, his crystal form dimmed with stress. "They killed our negotiators again." "Then offer more." The Voritan delegate's mandibles clicked frantically. "There must be something they want." Park Min-ho sat in the observer section watching the chaos. Beside him, Kim Soo-jin whispered, "They have no idea what to do." She was right. The Council had no military leadership, no chain of command, no strategic planning division. They had lived in peace so long that they had forgotten the infrastructure of war. Another delegate stood. "Perhaps if we show them our cultural achievements, they will understand we are worth preserving." "They do not care about your culture," Soo-jin snapped. Standing abruptly, all eyes turned to her. "They care about your resources and your territory. You cannot negotiate with someone who sees you as prey, not a partner." Shocked silence filled the chamber. Young assistants did not speak this way, but Soo-jin's patience had ended. Min-ho stood smoothly, bowing apologetically. "My assistant speaks with passion, but her point has merit. The Dekari have shown their intentions clearly. They are not interested in coexistence." "Then what do you propose?" Veloth asked. "You humans claim to understand conflict. What is your solution?" Min-ho met the council chair's gaze. "You need a military response. Organized, strategic, and immediate." "We do not have such capability," admitted the Voritan quietly. "Our species have not maintained serious military forces for generations. We have police. We have peacekeepers. But warriors?" He shook his head. "We thought we had evolved beyond such needs." And now? Minho asked gently. The silence was his answer. Another delegate spoke, one from a feline species known for pride. Perhaps we could hire mercenaries? The only mercenaries strong enough are the Dakari themselves, Minho replied. Anyone else would be slaughtered. Then we are doomed, Vren said, her aquatic form rippling with despair. Our civilization ends because we chose peace. Minho took a breath. There may be another option. Hope flickered in the chamber, desperate eyes fixed on the human ambassador. 6 months ago, you laughed at human military traditions. You called our warrior stories myths and our strategic studies primitive. But we maintained those traditions for a reason. Minho's voice remained calm, but his words carried weight. We hoped never to need them again, but we never forgot how to fight. You have military forces? Veloth asked, leaning forward. We have something better, Minho said. We have institutional memory. We have trained personnel. We have ships. How many ships? The Voritan asked, clicking with sudden interest. Minho did not answer directly. I need 48 hours to consult with Earth, to verify our capabilities and confirm our leadership's decision. This is not a choice I can make alone. 48 hours, Veloth said. We will give you 72. But please, Ambassador Park, we are begging for help. The session adjourned. Minho returned to his quarters immediately, Su Jin close behind. Can we actually help them? She asked, once the door sealed. If Earth agrees, Minho said, already composing his message. We have the reserves. We always maintain them, just in case. The Council does not know? We never advertised it. After we joined the galactic community, we seemed like aggressive primitives. Maintaining a military seemed to confirm their prejudices. So we kept quiet, let them think we were decommissioning, let them think we were evolving beyond violence. But we were not. No, Minho said. We were learning from history. Every species that forgot how to defend itself eventually needed someone who remembered. He finished the encrypted message and sent it directly to Earth's military command. The response came faster than expected. A video call, routed through quantum communications. Admiral Choi Yeon-su appeared on the screen. She wore her naval uniform, gray hair pulled back, expression serious. Ambassador Park, she said, I received your preliminary report. The situation is as bad as you indicate? Worse, Admiral. The Council has no military capability. None. The Dakari will continue until they control everything. And you believe we should intervene? I believe we have a duty. We joined this community. These people are now our allies, even if they once mocked us. Choi nodded slowly. I have been authorized to activate Reserve Fleet Protocol. We will begin mobilization immediately. But, Ambassador, understand what this means. We have kept our fleet hidden, dormant. When we reveal our strength, the galaxy will see us differently. They already see us as primitive, Minho said. At least now they will see us as useful primitives. A thin smile crossed Choi's face. 72 hours, you said? We will be ready in 48. Tell the Council that humanity accepts their request for military assistance. How many ships can you mobilize? Enough, Choi said. More than enough. The Dakari will learn that human myths are built on human history, and history is a harsh teacher. The call ended. Minho sat back, exhausted but relieved. Su Jin looked at him with new understanding. We really kept a whole fleet secret? She asked. Multiple fleets, Minho corrected. And the crews to staff them, and the logistics to supply them. We called them reserves, stored them at civilian stations, kept personnel in teaching positions. The galaxy thought we were historians studying dead warfare. They had no idea we were maintaining an active military tradition. They will know soon. Yes, Minho agreed. In 48 hours, the galaxy will witness something it has not seen in generations, a species that remembers how to fight. Captain Lee J. Wan was teaching history when the message arrived. His classroom on Mars was full of teenagers learning about the naval battles of Earth's past. He described carrier tactics, supply line management, strategic positioning. Most students thought it was interesting, but irrelevant. After all, the galaxy was at peace. Then his personal communicator vibrated with a priority code he had not seen in 5 years. "Class dismissed early today," he announced calmly. "Study chapters 12 through 14 for next week." The students filed out, confused but happy for the break. Lee waited until they were gone, then opened the message with shaking hands. "Reserve Fleet Protocol activated. Report to Dock 7, immediately. Your ship awaits." He stared at the words. His ship, the carrier Indomitable, mothballed 4 years ago when he retired from active service. He had assumed he would never see her again. Assumed the peace would last forever. He was wrong. Lee grabbed his coat and ran. Across human space, similar scenes played out. Reserve officers received recall codes. Retired crew members left civilian jobs. Veterans who had become teachers, engineers, farmers, and parents suddenly remembered another identity. They were warriors, and they were needed. At Earth's orbital shipyards, massive hangar doors opened for the first time in years. Ships that looked like museum pieces powered up their reactors. Crews rushed aboard, moving with practiced efficiency despite their years away. These were not new vessels built for war. These were the ships that had carried humanity to the stars, maintained carefully in hidden reserves. Carriers, destroyers, frigates, support craft, hundreds of them, stored in orbital facilities disguised as civilian infrastructure. The galaxy had thought humans were decommissioning their military. They were half right. Humans had decommissioned active service, but they never scrapped the ships, never fully retired the personnel, never forgot the procedures. Admiral Choi Yeon-soo stood on the bridge of the supercarrier Defiant, watching her fleet assemble. Ship after ship emerged from storage, joining the formation. She felt pride and sadness in equal measure. Pride that humanity had maintained this capability. Sadness that they needed to use it. "All ships reporting ready status," her communications officer said. "Fleet strength at 70% and climbing." 70% meant 342 ships. More vessels than the entire Council Defense Force had possessed. And they were still activating reserves. "How long until we reach full mobilization?" Choi asked. 18 hours, Admiral. Some reserve crews are traveling from outer colonies. "We leave in 12 hours with whoever we have," Choi decided. "The Council does not have time to wait." On Mars, Lee Jae-won reached Dock 7 breathless. The Indomitable waited, gray hull gleaming under the docking lights. She was smaller than the supercarriers, built to launch fighter squadrons and support smaller vessels. But she was his ship, and seeing her again made his chest tight. The crew was already arriving. Faces he recognized, some gray-haired now, some carrying extra weight from civilian life. But when they stepped aboard, something changed. Backs straightened, voices became crisp, muscle memory took over. "Captain on deck!" someone called as Lee entered the bridge. His bridge crew stood at attention. The tactical officer, the helm, the communications station. All positions filled by people who had served with him before. All responding to the recall. "At ease," Lee said, moving to his command chair. It fit like it always had. "Status report. Reactor at full power. Weapon systems online. Fighter bays loaded and ready. Supply holds at 90% capacity." His executive officer, Commander Park Ji-woo, smiled. "She is ready to fly, Captain." Like we never left. "We did leave, though," Lee said quietly. "We had lives, families, peace." "Yes, sir," Ji-woo agreed. And now others need us to remember what we learned in war so they can keep their peace. Lee nodded. Helm, prepare for departure. We join the fleet at Rally Point Titan. The Indomitable undocked smoothly, engines burning bright as she climbed away from Mars. One ship among hundreds, all converging on the rally points throughout the solar system. At the council station, Park Min-ho watched the reports coming in. The Shelkari had deployed sensor platforms to observe the human mobilization, thinking they would see a handful of outdated vessels. Instead, they saw an armada. This is impossible, Vren said, her aquatic form rippling with shock. Where did these ships come from? They were always there, Min-ho said simply. We just did not advertise. But we have observers. We have intelligence networks. How did we miss this? You were looking for active military bases, shipyards building warships, soldiers drilling in uniform. You did not think to look at our civilian infrastructure, our teaching academies, our historical societies. Min-ho pulled up a star chart showing the assembling human fleet. We kept our military tradition alive by calling it history. We kept our ships ready by calling them reserves. We maintained our warriors by giving them civilian jobs they could leave at any moment. The Voritin delegate clicked in what might have been respect. You deceived us. We prepared, Min-ho corrected. There is a difference. We hoped never to need this. But hope is not a strategy. Veloth's crystalline form pulsed with light. How many ships? Enough to matter, Min-ho said. Admiral Choi will brief you directly once the fleet arrives. The council watched as the human armada completed assembly. 412 ships in total, organized into battle groups with clear command structures. Carriers at the center, destroyers screening the flanks, support vessels maintaining supply lines. It was a sight the galaxy had not witnessed in living memory. A proper military fleet, moving with purpose and precision. The Dekari intercepted human communications, as expected. Their response came quickly, transmitted on open channels. So the primitives have rust buckets, the Dekari commander broadcast. Good. We were running out of targets. Come to Theta Primus. We will add your debris to our conquests. In her ready room, Admiral Choi listened to the message without expression. Then she opened a channel to her fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Choi. You heard their challenge. They think we are primitives playing at war. They think our traditions are myths and our training is theater. She paused. They are about to learn the difference between those who study war and those who have forgotten it exists. Set course for Theta Primus. Let us give them a history lesson. The human armada jumped to hyperspace, leaving the council station behind. 412 ships carrying the weight of human history. They were not conquerors seeking glory. They were defenders remembering duty. And the galaxy was about to witness what happened when myths became reality. The Dekari fleet waited at Theta Primus like predators guarding a kill. Commander Vrek stood on his flagship bridge, watching sensors track the approaching human vessels. His species had conquered 12 worlds, using superior numbers and brutal tactics. The council races had folded quickly, their police forces no match for real warriors. These humans would be the same. Primitives with old ships and no experience. Fleet count? Vrek asked. 412 vessels, his tactical officer reported. We have 1,283 ships in position, 3-to-1 advantage. Vrek bared his teeth in satisfaction. Numbers meant victory. The humans were fools to challenge him. When they arrive, we surround and destroy them. Make it quick. The human fleet dropped from hyperspace in perfect formation. Carriers in the center, surrounded by layers of destroyers and frigates, support ships hanging back, ready to supply the battle line. It was textbook positioning, but Rek dismissed it. Anyone could form a line. Actually, fighting was different. All ships, advance and engage, he ordered. The Dakari fleet surged forward, a wall of ships meant to overwhelm by sheer mass. On the Defiance Bridge, Admiral Choi watched the enemy approach with calm eyes. Textbook mass assault. No finesse, just numbers. She opened fleet communications. All carriers, launch fighters, destroyer groups, execute screening pattern Delta 7. Capital ships, maintain formation and wait for my mark. The response was immediate and precise. Hundreds of human fighters launched, forming defensive screens around the carriers. The destroyer group split into coordinated teams, each covering specific angles. Every ship knew its role, every crew moved with practiced efficiency. Captain Lee J. Wan stood on the Indomitable's bridge, watching his fighter squadrons deploy. Fighter control, this is Lee. Execute patrol pattern and stand by for attack vectors. Understood, Captain. All squadrons away and forming up. The Dakari fleet hit the human formation expecting easy targets. Instead, they met coordinated defense. Human fighters swarmed Dakari ships, working in pairs to strip away weapons and engines. Destroyer groups concentrated fire on single targets, overwhelming shields and moving to the next. The human fleet did not scatter or panic. They moved like parts of a single machine. "What is this?" Freck shouted, watching his ships take losses. "Why are they fighting together?" His tactical officer looked confused. "They are using combined tactics, multiple ship types supporting each other." "I can see that. Break their formation. Send the heavy cruisers forward." But breaking formation required coordination the Dakari lacked. Each Dakari captain fought for personal glory, trying to claim kills alone. They got in each other's way, blocked firing lines, created gaps the humans exploited ruthlessly. Admiral Choi saw the disorganization immediately. "They do not have command structure. Every ship is independent. Captain Lee, take Battle Group 3 and hit their left flank. Commander Sung, take Group 7 and sweep their supply line. I want them confused and divided." The human fleet split into coordinated strike groups, each hitting specific targets while supporting each other. Fighters covered the capital ships. Destroyers protected the carriers. Supply vessels moved ammunition and fuel where needed. It was warfare as art, strategy as science, everything the humans had preserved while the galaxy forgot. Rex's flagship shuddered under concentrated fire. 3 human destroyers had bracketed him, their weapons' fire timed perfectly to collapse his shields. "All ships fall back to defensive positions." But there were no defensive positions. The Dakari had planned to attack, not defend. Their fleet scattered in confusion, each ship trying to survive alone. "Boarding parties inbound," Freck's security officer announced. "Human assault craft have latched onto decks 4 through 7. Freck felt cold fear. His soldiers were fierce, yes. But they fought as individuals. Boarding actions were chaotic, brutal struggles. The human Marines entered his ship like they were following a script. They moved in teams of 4, covering each other perfectly. They did not charge wildly. They advanced methodically, clearing each room with practiced precision. When Dakari soldiers tried to ambush them, the Marines responded with coordinated fire that left no gaps. One Dakari soldier, bleeding from a dozen wounds, asked his human captor, "How did you train like this?" The Marine, a woman named Corporal Kim Hana, replied simply, "We never stopped training. You thought war was obsolete. We knew better." On the Defiance Bridge, Choi watched the tactical display shift in humanity's favor. The Dakari fleet was breaking. Ships were surrendering or fleeing. Rex's flagship sent distress signals. "Admiral, the enemy command ship is hailing us," her communications officer reported. "Put them through." Freck appeared on screen, his alien features showing defeat. "We surrender. Stop the attack. Agree to immediate ceasefire across all Council territories," Choi said. "Withdraw your occupation forces. Submit your fleet to Council custody." "We agree. All of it. Just stop." Choi transmitted the ceasefire order. Human ships halted their attacks but maintained combat positions. Fighters returned to carriers. Damage control teams began emergency repairs. Captain Lee, begin recovery of our personnel. All ships, maintain alert status until enemy withdrawal is confirmed. On the Indomitable, Lee watched Dakari ships begin their retreat. His crew was exhausted but professional. No celebrating, no gloating, just quiet satisfaction of duty performed. Commander Park Ji-woo approached him. "We did it, Captain, without losing a single ship." "Because we remembered," Lee said quietly. "We maintained discipline when others forgot it. We practiced tactics when others thought them obsolete." He looked at the retreating enemy fleet. "They learned today that military traditions are not primitive. They are the accumulated wisdom of survival." Admiral Choi opened a channel to Park Min-ho at the Council station. "Ambassador, you can inform the Council that Theta Primus is liberated. Enemy forces are in full retreat. We will proceed to the remaining occupied worlds and repeat the process." Min-ho's face showed relief and vindication. "Thank you, Admiral. The Council is watching the battle reports. I think they understand now." "Understand what?" "That human myths were never myths at all. They were memories, and memories kept you strong when others grew weak." Choi nodded. "We will complete the liberation campaign and return the occupied territories. After that, the Council needs to make decisions about their own defense. We cannot do this for them forever." "I know," Min-ho said. "But first, they needed to see that it could be done. That warriors are not primitives, they are guardians. That remembering how to fight does not make you violent, it makes you free." The human fleet regrouped and jumped toward the next occupied world. Behind them, Council observers watched the tactical recordings again and again, studying what real military coordination looked like. The Shelkari scientist Vren reviewed footage of human Marines clearing a Dakari ship deck by deck. "Look at the precision," she whispered. "Every movement planned, every soldier knowing exactly what their teammates will do. This is not savagery. This is discipline we have lost." The Vorotin delegate watched carrier operations, seeing how fighters and capital ships supported each other seamlessly. Their military academies were not museums, he realized. They were training facilities. We saw historical reenactment. They saw practical drills. And on Earth, in classrooms where teachers had returned to their ships, students read the news with new understanding. Their history lessons were not just stories about the past. They were preparations for futures they hoped would never come. But when those futures arrived, humanity was ready. 2 weeks after the Battle of Theta Primus, the Galactic Council convened in emergency session. Every occupied world had been liberated. The Dakari fleet was destroyed or captured. Their leadership signed binding peace treaties under Council supervision. The threat was over, but the questions were just beginning. Park Min-ho stood before the Council, no longer a cultural ambassador. Now he was a military liaison, speaking for a species the galaxy had underestimated. "We owe humanity an apology," Council Chair Veloth said, his crystalline form bright with emotion. "We dismissed your traditions as primitive myths. We were fools." "You were peaceful," Min-ho corrected gently. "That is not foolish. But peace without preparation is vulnerability." The Vorotin delegate clicked forward. "You kept military forces hidden from us. 400 ships, trained crews, complete logistics. How did we miss this?" "You saw what you expected to see," Min-ho explained. "You expected us to demilitarize because that is what civilized species do. So when we stored ships at civilian stations, you assumed decommissioning. When our veterans became teachers, you assumed retirement. When we studied military history, you assumed nostalgia. You deceived us," a delegate from a reptilian species accused. "We prepared," Kim Soo-jin said firmly, standing beside her mentor. "There is a difference. We never lied about our capabilities. You never asked. Silence fell across the chamber. Vren, the Shelkari diplomat who had once called human traditions primitive, spoke quietly. I studied your battle recordings. Your Marines moved with precision we cannot match. Your ships coordinated in ways we have forgotten. Your admiral commanded 400 vessels like they were extensions of her own mind. She paused. How? Training, Minho said simply. Constant training. We maintained military academies disguised as universities. We ran tactical exercises we called historical reenactments. We kept our warriors sharp by teaching them to teach others. Every human who served remained ready to serve again. Why? Veloth asked. You joined our community. You saw our peace. Why maintain war-fighting capability? Minho chose his words carefully. My grandmother survived the wars that nearly destroyed Earth. Before she died, she told me something I never forgot. She said peace is not the natural state of the universe. Peace is what you build and maintain through vigilance. The moment you think peace is permanent, you lose the ability to protect it. The council chambers remained silent, absorbing this wisdom. We studied your tactics, the Voritan said. Combined arms warfare, coordinated command structures, supply line discipline. These concepts are in our historical archives, but we thought them obsolete. We were wrong. Not obsolete, Minho said. Just dormant, waiting to be needed again. A new voice spoke up. Delegate Kresh, from a mammalian species. Should we rearm? Build our own military forces? The question hung heavy in the air. This was the moment that would define the galaxy's future. Admiral Choi Yon-su appeared via hologram, having been invited to address the council directly. That is your choice to make, but understand what it means. Maintaining a military requires sacrifice. Resources that could build schools go to ships. People who could be artists become soldiers. You must decide if that trade is worth making. Is it? Kresh asked. Yes, Choi said without hesitation, but not because war is good. Because strength protects peace. The Dekari attacked because you were weak. They will think twice before trying again now that you have defenders. You mean now that you defend us, Vren said quietly. But what happens when you leave? When you return to your space and we are vulnerable again? This was the critical question. Minho and Choi had discussed it extensively. We propose a new framework, Minho said. Humanity will maintain rapid response capability. We keep our fleets ready, our personnel trained. If major threats emerge, we respond. But each council species should develop their own defense forces. Not to conquer, but to protect. We will train your personnel, share our tactical knowledge, help you remember what you once knew. You would be our military teachers? The Voritan sounded skeptical. We would be your partners, Choi corrected. We do not want to be your permanent guardians. We want you to be able to guard yourselves. But that takes time. Until you are ready, we stand watch. The council debated for hours. Some species were uncomfortable with humans as protectors. Others worried about becoming dependent. A few suggested humans might use their military advantage to dominate. Park Min-ho addressed this last concern directly. If we wanted to conquer, we would have done it already. We have the ships, the training, the advantage. But that is not why we fight. We fight to protect. We maintained our military traditions not to threaten others, but to defend those who cannot defend themselves. Kim Soo-jin added, You laughed at our myths. You called our warrior traditions primitive. But those myths taught us something important. True strength is not about conquest. It is about sacrifice, about standing between the innocent and those who would harm them. That is why our stories honor defenders, not conquerors. The vote came at last. The council agreed to the new defense framework. Humanity would maintain their fleet and train council defense forces. Each species would contribute resources proportional to their capacity. Military academies would be established, taught by human instructors who would share their preserved knowledge. It was not perfect. Some species remained suspicious, others worried about costs, but it was a beginning. After the session, Minho walked with Admiral Choi through the station's observation deck. Below them, the human fleet began departure procedures. Most would return to reserve status, but they would remain ready. "We did what we came to do," Choi said. "The galaxy is safer now." "For now," Minho agreed. "But threats will come again, they always do." "Will we be ready?" "We will never stop being ready. That is the lesson we learned that they forgot." Captain Lee Jae-won supervised the Indomitable's stand-down procedures. His crew was preparing to return to civilian life again. Some would go back to teaching, others to families and careers, but they would remain on the reserve roster, ready to answer the call. Commander Park Ji-woo approached him. "Strange feeling going back to normal life?" "Is it normal?" Lee asked. "We know now that peace is temporary, that our skills will be needed again. But not today." "No," Lee smiled. "Not today. Today we can return to teaching history, and our students will understand now why we study it so carefully." The Indomitable docked at Mars, and Lee returned to his classroom. His students looked at him differently now. They had seen the news, seen their history teacher commanding a warship, seen their lessons proved relevant. "Welcome back, sir," one student said. "We finished chapters 12 through 14. "Good," Lee said, opening his lecture materials. "Today we discuss the importance of institutional memory, how knowledge preserved can save lives when needed, how peace is not the absence of warriors, but the presence of warriors who choose restraint." The students listened with new attention. These were not just stories anymore. They were instructions, preparations, memories kept alive for when they would be needed. On Earth, Admiral Choi met with government leaders. The fleet performed well. No ships lost, minimal casualties, complete mission success. "And now?" the Prime Minister asked. "Now we return to reserve status, but we maintain readiness. The galaxy knows we exist now. That changes the strategic balance." "They will fear us." "Some will," Choi admitted. "But most will respect us. We proved we fight to protect, not conquer. That is worth more than fear." Park Min-ho remained at the Council Station as humanity's permanent military liaison. His role had changed from cultural ambassador to strategic advisor. He taught council members about defense planning, helped them design their own military structures, shared the hard-won wisdom humanity had preserved. And every night he remembered his grandmother's words: "Peace is not permanent, but it is worth fighting for, worth preparing for, worth teaching to those who have forgotten." The galaxy had laughed at human myths. Stories of great fleets and warrior codes seemed primitive to species who had evolved beyond conflict. But when real danger came, those myths became salvation, because they were never myths at all. They were memories, and humanity never forgot.